almost as if his instincts were processing two realities at once. One reality where this is just Kylie being Kylie, and another where millions of people are watching, recording, analyzing, and interpreting. That brief hesitation is what viewers felt, even if they couldn't fully explain it. Travis Kelce, sitting right beside him, seemed to sense the shift immediately. His body language changed just enough to suggest awareness. Not panic, not discomfort, but awareness. The awareness of someone who understands how fast narratives form in the public eye, especially when Taylor Swift is anywhere near the frame. And then there was Taylor. Her reaction became the heartbeat of the entire conversation online. Not because she said anything, but because she didn't need to. Taylor Swift is one of the most controlled public figures of this generation. She has spent her entire career navigating moments that could easily spiral if mishandled. Her smile in that moment was polite, practiced, and composed, but it also carried an unmistakable element of surprise. Not offense, not anger, just the unmistakable look of someone who did not see that comment coming. That split-second expression is what transformed a normal joke into viral content. It was the visual representation of two worlds colliding, and viewers felt it immediately. Within hours, clips of that moment were everywhere. TikTok edits slowed the reaction down frame by frame. Twitter threads dissected facial expressions like evidence in a trial. YouTube thumbnails screamed embarrassment, tension, and drama. And just like that, a casual family joke became a talking point about boundaries, fame, and the pressure of existing in public spaces. But to understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to understand what New Heights represents. It's not a traditional celebrity interview show. It's built on comfort, on familiarity, on the illusion that listeners are sitting in the room with the Kelce family. That illusion worked perfectly until the weight of global attention made every casual moment feel heavier than it used to. Taylor Swift didn't sign up to be analyzed in a family-style environment like this. Her world is polished, rehearsed, and strategically managed because it has to be. One wrong move can become a year-long headline. Kylie Kelce doesn't live in that world. She's not trying to. She doesn't filter herself for public comfort, and that's exactly why fans respect her. But when those two approaches meet in the same space, friction is almost inevitable. Not because either person is wrong, but because the expectations surrounding them are fundamentally different. That friction is what the audience felt, and it's what made the moment so compelling to watch. That what's important to recognize is that embarrassment doesn't always mean humiliation. Sometimes it simply means being caught off guard in a space where you're expected to be prepared. Taylor's reaction reflected that reality. She adjusted, smiled, and stayed composed, because that's what she's trained to do. But the human element still showed through, and that's what people connected to. This wasn't a scripted moment. It wasn't planned. It was real, and real moments tend to expose the pressure people carry without saying a word. As the episode continued, the conversation moved on, but the energy never fully reset. Viewers could feel that something had shifted, even if it wasn't acknowledged verbally. That's the power of unscripted media. Sometimes what's not said speaks louder than what is. And in this case, what wasn't said sparked days of discussion across platforms. People weren't just reacting to the joke, they were reacting to what it represented. The reality that fame changes rooms, changes conversations, and changes how jokes land, even among people who mean no harm at all. This moment on New Heights wasn't about blame. It wasn't about calling anyone out. It was about witnessing the subtle pressure that comes with existing at the intersection of authenticity and global celebrity. Kylie stayed true to herself. Jason navigated instinctively. Travis remained aware. And Taylor handled the situation with grace. That combination is exactly why the moment felt so human, and exactly why it refused to fade quietly. As the clip continued to circulate across social media, the focus slowly shifted from what was said to what was felt. Viewers weren't just listening to Kylie Kelce's words anymore. They were watching the reactions that followed, trying to understand the unspoken dynamics playing out in real time. Taylor Swift's response became the emotional center of the discussion, not because she reacted dramatically, but because she didn't. Her restraint, her controlled expression, and her ability to remain composed in an unexpected moment revealed the invisible weight she constantly carries. Taylor exists in a world where even silence can be interpreted as a statement, and that reality changes how she experiences casual environments like a family podcast. The surprise on her face wasn't theatrical, it was human, and that humanity is what drew people in. For many fans, this moment felt relatable in a way they didn't expect. Almost everyone has experienced being caught off guard by a joke that landed differently than intended. But for Taylor Swift, that everyday experience happens under the gaze of millions. The smile she gave wasn't fake, but it was careful. It was the kind of smile that smooths over moments without drawing attention to discomfort. That reaction alone speaks volumes about the level of emotional discipline required to live her life in public. People weren't criticizing her for being uncomfortable. They were recognizing the pressure behind that composure, and that recognition turned into empathy. At the same time, Kylie Kelce's role in the moment continued to be debated. Some viewers applauded her for being unapologetically herself, arguing that authenticity should never be sacrificed just because celebrities are present. Others felt that the environment had changed, and with that change comes an unspoken responsibility to read the room differently. This divide highlighted a larger conversation about modern fame. When private family humor becomes public entertainment, where does the line exist? And who is responsible for drawing it? Kylie didn't cross a boundary intentionally, but the boundary itself may have shifted without anyone fully realizing it. Jason Kelce's reaction gained more attention as people rewatched the episode. His laughter, followed by a quick attempt to move the conversation forward, felt like someone instinctively trying to protect everyone involved. He didn't call attention to the moment, and he didn't shut it down aggressively. Instead, he did what many people do when they sense tension: he redirected. That subtle move showed emotional intelligence more than discomfort. Jason understands Kylie, he understands his brother, and he understands the spotlight they now operate under. Balancing those realities isn't easy, and that brief moment revealed how much awareness he carries beneath his easygoing personality. Travis Kelce's presence added another layer entirely. As Taylor Swift's partner, his role extends beyond being a podcast host or an NFL star. He's now someone whose reactions are scrutinized for signs of protection, alignment, and emotional awareness. During the moment in question, Travis didn't jump in verbally, but his body language shifted just enough to suggest attentiveness. He allowed the conversation to move on without escalating the situation, a choice that many viewers interpreted as intentional. It showed restraint, and more importantly, it showed understanding of the position Taylor is in whenever she appears in informal spaces. As discussions continued online, it became clear that this moment resonated because it exposed the contrast between authenticity and adaptation. Kylie Kelce represents a refusal to change who you are for the sake of public comfort. Taylor Swift represents the necessity of adaptation when the world is always watching. Neither approach is wrong, but when they exist in the same space, tension can naturally arise. That tension doesn't mean conflict, it means adjustment. And adjustment, especially in public, is rarely seamless. What made this moment linger wasn't embarrassment, it was vulnerability. Viewers weren't watching a scandal unfold, they were watching real people navigate an unscripted interaction under intense visibility. Taylor's grace, Kylie's honesty, Jason's balance, and Travis's awareness all intersected in a few seconds of footage that felt heavier than its length. That's why people kept talking about it. Not because it was dramatic, but because it felt real in a world where authenticity often feels staged. As days passed, the narrative slowly evolved. Initial reactions softened. People began acknowledging that the internet often magnifies moments beyond their original meaning. What once felt awkward began to feel understandable. The conversation shifted from blame to perspective, and that shift revealed something important about modern audiences. People aren't just hungry for drama anymore. They're hungry for understanding. They want to see the human side of fame, even when it's uncomfortable. And in that sense, this New Heights moment succeeded in a way no scripted segment ever could. It sparked conversation about boundaries, pressure, and the cost of living authentically in public spaces. It reminded viewers that even the most famous individuals are still navigating emotions, surprises, and social dynamics in real time. That reminder is powerful, because it bridges the gap between celebrity and audience, making both feel closer than they appear. As the conversation around the podcast moment matured, attention slowly shifted toward Kylie Kelce herself and what she represents in this increasingly complex spotlight. Kylie has never positioned herself as a celebrity, even though her proximity to fame would easily allow it. She doesn't curate an image, she doesn't soften her personality for public approval, and she doesn't adjust her language to fit trending narratives. That authenticity has always been her strength, and in many ways, it's exactly why the joke landed the way it did. Kylie wasn't performing. She was simply existing in her natural state, speaking the way she always does. For her, the podcast was still a family environment first and a media product second. That mindset is rare in today's attention-driven culture, and it's also what makes moments like this both refreshing and risky. Jason Kelce's position became even more interesting the more people reflected on it. As a former NFL player known for his humor, grit, and relatability, Jason has always thrived in unfiltered spaces. But retirement, fame, and the expansion of the New Heights audience have subtly changed his role. He's no longer just talking to fans, he's speaking to the world. That awareness doesn't erase who he is, but it does add a layer of responsibility he didn't previously have to manage. In this moment, Jason looked like someone instinctively trying to keep peace without suppressing authenticity. His reaction wasn't about choosing sides, it was about keeping the room emotionally safe for everyone involved, including the millions watching who would inevitably form opinions. Travis Kelce, meanwhile, has undergone one of the most dramatic public transitions of anyone involved. Once known primarily for football and personality, he now occupies a space where sports, entertainment, and global pop culture intersect. Being in a relationship with Taylor Swift means his actions are no longer interpreted solely through the lens of athletics or humor. Every pause, smile, or shift in conversation is read as intentional. In this moment, Travis didn't need to say anything to communicate awareness. His subtle redirection showed someone who understands the stakes without making them obvious. It was the kind of quiet emotional intelligence that often goes unnoticed unless people are looking closely. What made this dynamic so compelling was the lack of conflict. No one argued. No one corrected anyone. No apologies were demanded or offered in real time. And yet, the tension was felt by millions. That tension came from the invisible rules that govern public life. Rules about what can be said, how it should be said, and who is allowed to say it without consequences. Kylie Kelce exists largely outside those rules. Taylor Swift exists entirely within them. Jason and Travis sit somewhere in between, navigating both worlds simultaneously. That intersection is where the discomfort lived. As viewers continued to revisit the clip, many began to recognize that the awkwardness wasn't personal, it was structural. It wasn't about Kylie making a joke or Taylor reacting to it. It was about the environment changing faster than people can emotionally adjust to. When private humor becomes public content, intention often gets lost in interpretation. What feels normal in one context can feel shocking in another, especially when audiences bring their own expectations into the space. That's exactly what happened here. People projected meaning onto a moment that was never meant to carry it, and in doing so, revealed more about modern fame than about the individuals involved. Another reason this moment resonated so deeply is because it highlighted how women in public spaces are often held to conflicting standards. Kylie was praised by some for being bold and criticized by others for being too blunt. Taylor was admired for her composure and simultaneously analyzed for signs of discomfort. Both women were expected to manage the emotional tone of the room in different ways, despite neither creating the spotlight they were standing in. That imbalance didn't go unnoticed by viewers who are increasingly aware of how public narratives shape perception. Over time, the conversation began to soften. People started acknowledging that the internet's tendency to exaggerate moments can turn normal human interactions into exaggerated storylines. What initially felt tense began to feel understandable. The humanity of the situation became clearer with distance. It wasn't about embarrassment, it was about adjustment. Adjustment to fame, to audience size, to expectations, and to the reality that authenticity looks different depending on where you stand. This realization reframed the moment entirely. Instead of seeing it as an awkward slip or an uncomfortable joke, many viewers began to see it as a snapshot of transition. A family podcast evolving into a global platform. A pop star navigating informal spaces. Athletes learning to exist in entertainment culture. That transition isn't smooth, and moments like this expose the friction that comes with growth. By the time the conversation reached this point, it was clear that the New Heights moment wasn't fading because it was dramatic. It was lingering because it was honest. It reflected a reality many people live every day, just without the cameras. The challenge of being yourself, while also being aware of how others might receive you. The pressure to adapt without losing authenticity. And the quiet strength it takes to move forward without turning discomfort into conflict. As the online discussion around the podcast moment reached its peak, the focus expanded beyond individual reactions to the broader lessons embedded in what unfolded. Social media users dissected every facial expression, every pause, every laugh, and every shift in body language, not simply because they wanted to critique, but because they were searching for meaning. What emerged from this viral moment was less about embarrassment and more about human interaction under unprecedented scrutiny. Kylie Kelce remained unapologetically herself, speaking in a manner consistent with her personality, while Taylor Swift demonstrated a masterclass in public composure, managing her reaction with elegance and subtle awareness. Jason and Travis acted as the balancing forces, each navigating the tension in their own way. The combination of these four individuals, each with their own public identity and personal tendencies, created a moment that was inherently relatable yet magnified by fame. The power of this moment lay in its authenticity. It reminded viewers that even those who live their lives under constant public observation are still susceptible to surprise, awkwardness, and the occasional need to recalibrate socially. Kylie's joke, though casual in intent, collided with the weight of expectations surrounding Taylor, whose every reaction is observed, analyzed, and interpreted by millions worldwide. Jason's instinctive redirection of the conversation revealed the invisible labor that goes into maintaining harmony in public-facing interactions. And Travis's subtle guidance highlighted his awareness of both his partner's and his family's positions within the broader media landscape. Together, these actions underscored the delicate choreography required when private personalities meet global attention. Another reason this clip resonated so widely was the exploration of contrasting approaches to authenticity and public perception. Kylie represents a raw, unfiltered presence that doesn't rely on approval or anticipation of public judgment. Taylor embodies the disciplined navigation of fame, where every movement is weighed and every expression measured. The tension arising from their interaction wasn't personal. It was structural, a reflection of the environments they operate in. It illustrated the invisible balancing act that exists in spaces where private life meets public consumption. Observers could sense the friction without any words being explicitly exchanged, making the moment feel intensely human and relatable. The aftermath also highlighted the dual nature of social media as both a magnifying glass and a distortion tool. While the clip was undoubtedly humorous and engaging in context, the online reaction amplified its significance, creating narratives that were sometimes far removed from intent. Some viewers debated whether Kylie had overstepped, while others praised her authenticity. Similarly, Taylor's response was dissected endlessly, with some praising her grace and others reading tension that may not have been significant. This illustrates a broader lesson about how fame reshapes the interpretation of ordinary human behaviors and how audiences assign meaning to moments that would otherwise pass unnoticed. Ultimately, the New Heights moment became more than just a viral clip. It became a study in interpersonal dynamics under the microscope of celebrity culture. It highlighted how authenticity, composure, emotional intelligence, and social awareness intersect when ordinary interactions are made public. It demonstrated that even well-intentioned humor can feel differently depending on the context and audience. It reminded viewers that behind the cameras, behind the fame, and behind the viral moments, these individuals are navigating the same complex emotional landscapes that everyone experiences, albeit at an exponentially higher level of scrutiny. In conclusion, this episode of New Heights was not just entertaining, it was instructive. It revealed how family, fame, and authenticity collide, producing moments that are simultaneously awkward, endearing, and insightful. Kylie Kelce's unfiltered humor, Jason's balancing act, Travis's subtle guidance, and Taylor Swift's poised reaction combined to create a moment that resonated because it was real. It was not manufactured, it was not staged, and it was not without layers of meaning that extended beyond the surface. For viewers, it offered both a reminder of the pressures of public life and a reflection of the universal human experience. How we navigate surprise, adjust to shifting social dynamics, and maintain composure when the spotlight is unforgiving. By the time the episode concluded, it was clear why this clip would be remembered. It wasn't just about a joke or a fleeting reaction. It was about the interplay of personality, fame, and social awareness. It showed that even in the most light-hearted settings, public figures are constantly performing invisible emotional calculations. And it reminded audiences that while celebrity life is extraordinary in visibility, the core human experiences of surprise, adaptation, and authenticity remain universal. The viral moment on New Heights stands as an enduring example of how humor, grace, and awareness coexist in public life, and why even a few seconds of reaction can captivate millions across the world.